Jerusalem was a very important, the most important city for the Jews, but not for everyone. It had different connotations for different peoples. For some, like the Jews, it was a place of the presence of God. But for the Samaritans, it was associated with the Jewish worship. It is important to know it because years earlier, when King Nabucodonosor exiled the people of Israel, then later on, he populated that region with other race. The Jews go back from the exile after 70 years, and they find another ethnic group in that region. Instead of retaining their own identity, they start intermarrying and also welcoming and instituting the practices of the pagan nations. This was, in a nutshell, the description of why the animosity existed in between the Jews and the Samaritans. Then, when the Jews found out that the Samaritans were practicing foreign religious practices, rituals, were not following the one true God manifested to the Jews, they started despising them. To the point that the Samaritans were not even welcomed in the rebuilding of the temple after the exile. When we feel despised and rejected, the reaction would be we start harboring those ill feelings that later on will find an outlet in a similar attitude. Then the Jews didn't want to intermingle and associate with the Samaritans. And when they were traveling from Galilee down to Judea for festivals, they would always bypass the Samaritan territory. Not this time that we hear Jesus was determined to go up to Jerusalem, where his passion, death, and resurrection would take place. He could have gone the other way, but he decides to go through the enemy's territory, so to speak, as if asking for troubles. But he's the one who came and saved what was lost. And he wants to be welcomed in a Samaritan village. That's already, from the very outset, it's a failed mission. Because everybody knew, you ask for hospitality there, most likely you will be turned aside. You will be pushed away. Instead, Jesus does not settle for the long-lasting animosity, but decides still to go through that region. What happens here? Two of his disciples, James and John, were not welcomed. And back in the day, not welcoming travelers meant you would let them die and actually put them in harm's way, because hospitality was of an utmost importance for the travelers, especially for the pilgrims, so that they would not end up dehydrated or attacked and robbed by the thieves. Look at the reaction of James and John. You treat us like that? Now we'll show you what we are capable of. Let us ask to bring down fire from heaven, which means ill feelings translated into more ill feelings, and the escalation of revenge is further perpetuated. So now what should we do? We may say, well, James and John, God, for what always the Jews had treated Samaritan with, But now they would like to even show how displeased they are, and someone has to pay for this rejection. This is one of the darkest emotions and feelings we can experience in us, that is just like a springboard for a lot of evil in our families, in our communities, in our society, and beyond, basically. You treat me with evil, I'll pay you with such an amount of aggression that you will never forget it. How does Jesus respond to that? He could have sent the fire from heaven saying, well, I'm going to Jerusalem to worship one true God, the one who is your Savior, the one who is who sent me. Instead, he rebukes the disciples. Notice, he doesn't rebuke the Samaritans. He doesn't oppose and say, look, you're inhospitable, we're in need of shelter, of food, of drink. How do you treat the travelers? You don't even know us. You don't even know that I'm a son of God, sent here by the Father to save you. Jesus, more than anything else, is concerned about how the disciples react. And he rebukes the disciples as he rebuked the demons, as he rebuked the storm on the sea, because there was a demon lurking there. Which shows that all of us need to be corrected, need to be also rebuked at times, need to be told that our ideas that are driven by wounded emotions can be destructive for ourselves and for others. How can the Samaritans believe in the God of love who sent Jesus if James and John had sent the fire and brimstone from heaven? It would have never happened. Not by chance, in the first reading, we exactly find these words. That one day the peoples, which means the pagans, will desire to go up to the temple of the Lord. Come, let us go to implore the favor of the Lord. And another phrase, I too will go to seek the Lord to receive a favor. Which one? Well, especially, fundamentally, that we may not only believe in Jesus Christ, but we may be healed of all those dark traits that are lurking in us. Some things we cannot control on our own, and especially now with all sorts of currents, cultural, political, there are very different emotions that can be stirred within us, and how attentive we need to be so that we may not turn into an evil, presence among other people. We need the grace of God. We need the favor. But to do what? Well, Lord, teach me your paths. What is your design? Show me that a response to rejection, to attack, to contempt is not the path of violence. Look, the old man in us, which means the nature, the human nature, the earthly nature, would be retaliation. That is us. And we may say, it's normal. Yes, because this is what we inherited. But if you put this virus in the right spot that it starts perpetuating, look, all the families will fall apart. I can give you a few stories of people, on one hand, whose marriages fell apart because the deep-seated revenge was brewing there. The families fell apart, their kids fell apart, and the devil triumphed. But I can also give you the examples of people who were not guided by revenge. They allowed the Lord to conquer revenge in them, letting Jesus correct them, rebuke them. But what happened? The marriage was saved, the kids were saved, and they didn't get derailed. But it all hinged on this aspect, whether we'll retaliate, whether we'll become vengeful, whether we will become hateful. Can we stop the avalanche or the tsunami of the hatred that can be stirred up in us on our own? Impossible, or extremely difficult, and life shows it. But if the Lord comes and conquers in us and heals us of this diabolical virus, you know what will happen? The lives, the families, our even relationships among us will be healed, will be cured, because only when the Lord rebukes the demons in us, the evil, the dark sides that we understand we need to be rebuked, will help us to move on. And instead of becoming an agent of the darkness, we will become the instrument in the hands of the Lord. St. Paul, at one stage of his life, he was an agent of evil when he considered that putting the Christians in jail and persecuting them, he was doing favor to God. But later on, when the Lord appeared to him and changed his life, he became the vessel of the grace, bringing the gospel of love, of forgiveness to everyone, even to those who were persecuting him. Let us ask for the humble spirit coming up to the temple of the Lord, which means Jesus Christ, to receive this favor in this aspect of our lives. Wherever we are, wherever we, journey, the Lord journeyed to another village. However our situation is, grant me this favor, Lord, not to answer evil to evil. Grant me your spirit that is meek and humble.